The boys are back, and there's lots to talk about with political consultant O'Brien Murray and political analyst and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent, J.C. Polanco. And that is a real mouthful.
Oh, well, I appreciate you saying it.
You're more educated.
My students love to hear it.
You've got more titles and education than me. What am I doing here?
Wow, you're the man.
You're
beating me on predictions.
You're the bad boy on the seat. So look, Donald Trump, week one, go.
I've had conversations all week with Democrats and Republicans. For even the Democrats, put aside even the policies, they are amazed and in awe. The joke on one of the calls was, that wasn't there last week with our guy. I mean, what you're seeing today, he's executing and doing things, and he's doing what he said he was going to do, and he is doing it with a vengeance. He's also giving incredible acts to the press. In your class, based on what you teach in politics sometime, what he did when he signed the first executive orders, he sat there for nearly an hour getting peppered with questions on executive orders and everything else. That was an amazing experience for the press and its access in the Oval Office to a president on day one.
How do you feel about this?
Well, I think that that inauguration address was just terrible. It was horrific. I mean, there was nothing positive about it. It seemed more like a campaign stop. So he set the tone in American Carnage style, which is we're the worst. The administration sucks.
Style?
Yeah, you remember his first.
That was 8 years ago.
No, it continued. It was like a campaign stop. The people behind me are terrible. I'm going to fix all the mess they've made. We're going to be respected again. It seemed he started off on not the right note, and then, quite frankly, let's be honest. Within 24 hours, I'm seeing guys that beat up on cops get pardoned by this guy, and I'm also seeing American citizens. American citizens being rounded up by ICE in Newark, New Jersey. Give me a break. You act like hold up. Forget about partisan stuff. That's not exactly.
Two things. Number one, you forgot about 22 minutes before that speech. The Bidens were all given their own pardons. Number one, let's not leave that out. Number two, what you're talking about right now with these raids are what is a result of 4 years of terrible, terrible protection and security at our borders. And what you have right now, and what you have in any situation is this. And New York right now needs to change its own rules for sanctuary cities. Right now, the mayor should do this. Let ICE at Rikers.
Okay, you can't do that. You just ignored the fact that an American citizen who was a veteran was rounded up by ICE.
I'm a veteran too, and I will tell you what happened.
How about address that before you go off on your speech about? Because I agree with you that immigration is a problem, and we should do something about sanctuary cities. I'm with you, but you're just going to overlook what I just said.
No, if you let me finish, you'll hear.
I can't wait. Go ahead.
So here's what happens: if you let a illegal immigrant out of Rikers and ICE goes after them in any way, shape, or form, and you're with them, you will be arrested. No different than if there was a party going on somewhere and there was cocaine on a table somewhere, or you're in a car and somebody's got illegal. They're going to get arrested and let go. Number one. Number two, if they were to arrest the individual at the prison, at Rikers, instead of putting them at home with their family and with others, then there will not be. You will not put people in harm's way or police.
Obi.
Jason, is it a bad idea to let ICE back into Rikers?
Absolutely not. I think it's an important thing for us to do. We have to get the bad folks out. I mean, anybody in New York City.
So you're saying ICE should be allowed back into Rikers?
ICE must be allowed. We have people. And this is what's crazy about this. No, but this is what I don't understand. He wants to tell you, Marsha, that everything is hunky dory and that this president is just amazing. And he stuck to all his promises. But time out. Let's talk about this president in the first week. In the first week, he started off on the wrong note. Within minutes, he's signing these most ridiculous executive orders, ending birthright citizenship through an executive order, knowing full well that's not how you handle that. And then he's going to pardon some folks that hurt police officers. That's a problem for me.
Wait. I want to ask a question. So let's take a breath, and let's talk about the fact that he pardoned everybody from January 6th. So there was no discrimination about if you had a weapon, if you attacked the police.
That's a problem.
Wait, let me finish. And when he was asked to explain it, he said it would have been too difficult to try to do each individual case, so I just did a blanket pardon. The question I have for you is this. We know that he did the pardons, but he also was supported by a lot of police organizations and law enforcement organizations. Will this move color their views of him going forward, because there's a lot of resentment?
So a couple things on that. Number one.
Of course there's always a couple with Obi. Can I get a minute?
Number one, he'd signed the big numbers to begin with. Agree with that. He also did separate out. When I was watching the signings, there was less than 20 he signed out separately for commutation instead of pardon, which is a very big difference there from a legal standpoint. More importantly, anyone that attacked a police officer, did violence, and damage to the property needs to be looked at separately. But that has now been done.
But
he didn't do it.
Obi.
He didn't do it.
That's a mistake.
But he didn't do it, and now they're pardoned.
And that's a mistake. You have folks that were sentenced to 22 years, 18 years for seditious conspiracy against the United States, and they're now out, and they're saying that they're going to come back stronger than ever. That's a problem. He sends the wrong message.
How does this color his future relationships with the men in blue?
It doesn't, Marsha. Marsha, it doesn't.
I've talked to police officers.
Men and women in blue.
I've talked to police officers, and we've heard them on talk radio. Without being a poll, it's 66%, 2/3 of them are in favor of what he did, and they're okay with it. There's a police officer I heard say, there's a police officer that has said that I have had more damage done to me, and they're let out right away.
The truth is, I don't think anything is going to impact the law enforcement's relationship with President Trump. It's a cultural connection that he has with them that I can't explain it even after these pardons. But let's be honest about it. That was a mistake. We're going to look back at that. We're going to look back at those things. These are people that have pled guilty, Marsha, to committing crimes against the United States, and he just let them go.
I want to change the topic. I want to talk to you about Eric Adams making a decision to go to the inauguration instead of going to several Martin Luther King events. Good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea for the Democratic primary. Great idea for Mayor Eric Adams because he's now more connected with President Trump. There's a connection there that he may need in the future. But as far as Democratic Party politics, in a primary for you to not be here, it's a problem. It's great that he put the city before himself. And I think what he's doing right now is something, if you think about Chris Christie, when Sandy occurred and when President Obama landed in New Jersey and Chris Christie gave him the hug during the Romney campaign in the final days when we had Sandy, all that mattered for him was New Jersey. What matters now is New York City. And what the Biden White House did to this city during the immigration crisis was turn its back.
So you're buying the idea that the mayor has been floating that he was indicted because he attacked the Biden administration about border control?
I think we have an issue right now with the U.S. attorney who wrote that the timing on what was being inspected and so forth was a challenge to that timeline. But yes, I think there was a reason for why certain things happened to this mayor for what we're talking about.
You're saying he was persecuted?
I think so. No question about it.
You agree with
Well, I don't know if he was persecuted or not. We haven't seen any evidence brought into court yet. He hasn't had an opportunity or day in court to defend himself. So making such an allegation would be a little overreach, in my opinion. But let's face it, the world is political. You're talking about the hurricane, the superstorm that hit New Jersey. I don't think that happened in New York. So as far as the Democratic primary is concerned, he gave red meat to the base and to those that are competing against him for the primary as to why he left to go hang out with Donald Trump and not be here in New York City.
How much money did the city spend on immigrants and not get money back from Albany or from the federal government?
We only have about a minute left in this section. Pardon. Is it a good idea for President Trump to pardon Eric Adams or not a good idea politically? We only have a minute, so let's...
Politically, it's the kiss of death. He needs not to accept the pardon. He needs to continue with his case and be able to prove himself that he did nothing wrong in order to have a shot at getting reelected mayor of New York.
He has to either fight through without the pardon and found not guilty, or he takes the pardon and runs the city until the end of his term and does what's right for New York City at this point, instead of just fight against... The city versus the president is not the way to win this thing for New York City. The state owes $6 billion.
So you're saying if he gets pardoned, he should not run for re-election?
I think it makes it very tough for him to run being pardoned.
It's a kiss of death if he accepts a pardon. There's no way that the mayor will win re-election if he accepts a pardon from President Trump.
He's got $3.5 million in his campaign finance right now, his last report from New York City. And how's he going to get matching funds going forward?
So we're going to have to leave this right here for now, but we'll be right back. We're back with the boys, J.C. Polanco and O'Brien Murray. So I'd like to go back to immigration for a second and ask you this question. If President Trump really makes good on his promise to deport so many migrants, there are those that say that this would destroy New York City's economy because immigrants fill a lot of jobs and contribute billions and billions of dollars to the economy. Is that really smart on the part of President Trump to do that?
There's going to be an overcorrection. It must be corrected from what's been going on the past 4 years. There will be an overcorrection. The question is what happens in New York for what we've already done and the immigrants we now have today that have been here for years, months, decades, that are so important to the lifeblood of the city.
But here's the bottom line. Think about this for a second. In 2021, which is the last figures I could get, immigrants paid $61 billion in taxes in New York City. So if you're going to remove these people who earn money and pay taxes, it hurts the economy of the city. And New York City is one of the engines that supports the entire country. So does it make sense to try to take away all this money, which then taxes don't go to Washington and Albany as well?
If I may, I think that what President Trump is going to do is that he's going to try to get the violent undocumented immigrants out first.
Okay, but what about?
But he's not going to have it's almost impossible for you to get everyone that's undocumented out of the country. It's almost impossible. So he's focused.
That's what he said he wants to do.
I know, and I want to be 6'5". It's not going to happen. So I think what you're going to see is that all the violent migrants are going to be absolutely deported, and then there's going to be a discussion as to what to do next. But to your point, we had millions of people that came in the last several years, and they didn't come through right ports of entry. About 75% of their claims for asylum will be rejected because they don't legally qualify.
So they're going to have to leave?
And they're going to have to leave. And I think that was the message that voters sent in November.
We're talking about the new wave of migrants who came.
Those guys are gone.
In the last 200, like there's about 200,000 of them.
Right. Those. I think those people who did not come through a port of entry are definitely going to be deported. And I think you have enough resources to get that done.
The other thing too is, Election Day was one thing, but the actual polling on the immigrants now and those that are here illegally and what Trump is doing, President Trump is doing, went over in the past few years. This public across this country, 30-point differential from where they were, mid-30s to almost 60% now for what they're trying to do for the country and what the president is doing today. What happened to Biden was 4 years ago when he came in, he went the other direction and went too far, and the public got fed up with it. So what we need to do here, Marcia, is pay attention to the economy in New York, make sure it's done right, but also this visibility that they're doing right now on TV, and when there's a military plane right now flying from Texas south of the border and returning immigrants to their home countries, what we're showing is you've got to do this the right way to come to this country and be able to stay. And that's going to stop the numbers from going up and the illegal immigration to continue to increase.
Do you know what's interesting, though, Marcia? That it was President Obama that had 2.5 million people deported during his time as president. President Trump's numbers don't even come close to that. You would think that it was kumbaya during the 8 years of President Obama. Quite the opposite. President Obama governed like a centrist on immigration. We saw it in his deportation numbers of taking the folks that don't belong here, that have violent criminals, out. So I don't think that we're being honest, especially those of us New Yorkers that did not support the president, which I didn't. And you know that. To think about exactly what is it that we're arguing against. I think we're arguing nonsense. We have people that are here undocumented that we don't know who they are. Some of them are criminals. They have to leave. If they got their hearings and they've already been ruled to have been here and to have gone, they have to go. And we have to start thinking along those lines because that's what the country voted. And if Democrats don't hear that, they're going to continue losing elections moving forward.
The Democrats are interesting, too. Following the President Obama leadership and what he did for that was so different than what President Biden did. President Biden was so scared of the progressives for what he did at this point. That's going to be one of the challenges.
So, do you think that the sanctuary laws of the city have to be changed?
If I may, I think so. If I may, Obi, I think it's important that they're changed. First of all, I understand that there's a long history with Mayor Koch, Mayor Giuliani, but times have changed. We actually have a grid now. You can actually see what crimes can you commit and not be reported to ICE. So you could create danger in your community and have ICE not know that you've been arrested or even convicted. Now, we're talking about drunk driving, human trafficking, prostitution. I mean, it goes down the line of things that you... And I think that those people that we're protecting create a problem in those communities.
The Lincoln-Riley Act hopefully will change some of that because even shoplifting will fall under that. The question is whether they can be arrested in New York City because of our sanctuary.
But Marcia, the sanctuary city is one thing. When it's a magnet city, I think that's where it becomes a challenge because it's not just about providing shelter. It's also providing food. Remember, when immigrants first come here, they can't work at first legally. So you have a whole issue there. If they work to make some money, they're doing something illegal at that point, just working. They have to be part of the system. And the magnet, who's paying for that when they come to the city? We want people to be safe. One of the reasons you want to have a sanctuary city is where they can, at this point, where they did the driver's license. Should they get driver's license or not? Should they get IDs and not driver's license? If they don't have a driver's license and they drive, they're not insured. They cause other problems. So, and are they identified? How do they get banking? If they have cash, do they become victims of criminal? They have to be able to operate if they're here legally and what's got to be done. But it cannot be the burden that we had that came about this past year.
And we have to be compassionate as well. Look, there's a reason for why we have sanctuary laws. There have been battered women who are afraid to call the police on their husbands because of fear of being deported and the problems that exist. So there is room and a place for sanctuary laws, but we have to handle it with the precision of a surgeon when it comes to this issue, because there are political repercussions as well.
Hurricanes in Haiti. Again, the same thing. When you've got people you're trying to save lives and their country's been damaged, no question about it.
All right, so let's switch and talk about the mayor's race. What's the over-under about whether Andrew Cuomo gets into the race?
If I were Andrew Cuomo and I'm looking at these poll numbers, I feel like the people are calling me, don't you think? I look at those poll numbers, I think the people are calling my name, and it sounds like every time I see a poll,
but is he deaf?
They love him. No, I think he's playing, I remember being in high school, I went to an old boys school, but he seems to be like, that young lady in the party that everybody wants to take out to the dance. And she knows she's pretty. And he looks pretty to the Dems right now.
You're going to have Andrew Cuomo campaigning for mayor with Barack Obama, and Jennifer Aniston will be here too with him. That's going to be here too.
Is he going to run?
Yes. If you look at his campaign finance report, you know what he's got right now? He has more than 200 people, if I'm not mistaken, I looked at it the other day, that have donated to him $300 and below. That's a mix of people from across the country, but a lot of them in New York, at least half from New York. He's already building up his matching funds plan for New York City. Still to this day, he's raising money as the filing from 2 weeks ago.
You actually think he's going to run?
Absolutely.
I didn't think before, but these poll numbers make it clear to me. I would run.
You
if you give me those
both
polls,
agree on
we agree on more than you think.
He spent 25 or 30 grand at least on a poll that he filed. It was filed on December 31st. When he paid for it.
But you know what? Let's not forget this. Let's not forget that Mayor Adams is still the incumbent.
What effect does he have on the race if he gets into the race?
I think if he gets into the race, he automatically the poll numbers are going to shoot up. There's going to be funding is going to drain from other candidates, and I think that Mayor Adams has to make a decision right now. You have to decide, Mayor Adams, if you're watching, what are you going to do moving forward? Are you all in? Let us know, because you have a lot of people that are going to be seeing.
But there's two issues, okay?
What are you going to do?
Number one, he does have a problem with the African-American community from when he ran against Carl McCall all those years ago, and there's some hard feelings about that. And secondly, there are women in this city, some of whom were involved with him, who are going to come back, and they're going to say, he sexually harassed me. Lindsey Boylan coming in. And the third thing is, what about the nursing home families? So he has three groups of people that may be trying to campaign against him.
Carl McCall will campaign with him. Appointments and so forth, that won't be the issue. Number two, where was Governor Cuomo when he was fighting to stay in Albany? He went to Harlem. He had the press conference up there in Harlem with the African-American community. So he'll have their support. And without that,
and Black and Latino support, let's not forget. He has a lot of support with Black and Latinos. To your other points, look, I think that's going to be an attack on him. He's going to have to defend those positions.
How does he defend being a sexual harassment?
No, this is how.
Scott Stringer's got the same problem.
Well,
it's a lawsuit that's still going on. Number two, who is going to spend the money against Andrew Cuomo when he's the front runner? The polling today already says he's the front runner substantially, and also, as a Democrat, what was it like trying to primary Andrew Cuomo when he was governor and trying to raise money?
But
the Democrats.
But it's different. Hold up. You do have other candidates that are have matching funds and are going to do a lot of campaigning against them, and they're dying for the opportunity to bring up those two subjects you mentioned. About the issues that you mentioned regarding nursing homes and the sexual harassment, one of the things that former Governor Cuomo could say is, when I wanted to pursue this and bring folks to depositions and put them under oath about what I'm being accused of doing, they dropped it. And I never did anything wrong. He's never admitted to doing it. He's always denied it. And he said, when I wanted to go under oath and let's do this so that I can clear my name, you decided to drop your case. So he's going to be able to defend himself on that issue. And as far as the nursing homes, this is an attack that the Republicans launched against him. It didn't work. I don't know if it's going to work in a Democratic primary.
He has a game of dominoes. With one domino, it's all that matters, the first one. There's a woman that was suing him who dropped the case when she had to be under oath in a deposition. She dropped it.
There's 10 more women.
No, but when that one, if she actually suing the state still, the state hasn't dropped this case. If she's deposed under the state and she falls apart, as they were saying she was going to do with Cuomo, once that domino goes, it's going to question everything else. Much like on the way up, when all these women came forward.
But to Marsha's point,
are you saying that the Attorney General was wrong in what she did in terms of going?
I didn't say that. But Marsha mentioned something interesting. There are another 9 women, right? And we don't know what's going to happen with any commercials or any campaigning that comes out of that. So we don't know at the end of the day what the campaigns that are facing former Governor Cuomo are going to launch as an offensive with the other 9 allegations. But, you also have to remember that there is a report that Attorney General James and her team provided, and it's going to be part of the discussion in a primary.
It's going to be a discussion. But if there's 4 top candidates that are competitive, if the number is 4, okay, you have that, and you have a couple months, and you have $1 million a week to be on New York City TV. It is not something you can get that message across. You have three messages to get across in a campaign. Unless some IE comes up.
What are the three?
Whatever they are for any campaign, you don't have time for more than three. I think Harris had time for two, and she didn't even get one.
But you saw that with Senator Zaire Miller just now. He just gave you the three. I understand that, but what about this? What about the fact that you're right? And what about the fact that maybe
we record that? Wait.
No.
What
about the fact that what about the fact that it's just a lot of money?
Said you're
what
right.
about What about it's just a lot of money? Okay, fine. You make a good point. But what about this? What about the fact that you have a situation where President Trump has shattered the norms about accusations making you bow out of races?
That helps Andrew Cuomo?
I think that Andrew Cuomo and Democrats are saying, hey, wait a minute. That guy made it all the way to the White House. Why can't this? He's denied the allegation, and I think you're going to see a lot of that coming out across.
Here's part of it too. I think it gets more coverage when he was governor than when he was mayor. I think what you have is it's old news. It's yesterday's news. I mean, running a race citywide last cycle that I did, the press will cover 4 races. That's Andrew Yang sucked up all the oxygen. Adams was filtered around the bottom, and then it switched. And that's exactly the point, though. There was only coverage for 2.
All right, but
so
wait
who's
a
the
second.
switch? Who's else?
So in February of 2021, Andrew Yang was the odds-on favorite to win. Eric Adams was in the bottom of the thing, but it changed. Right now, so now we're in January 2025, and the polls say Andrew Cuomo. But what happens in June?
What was the Mayor Adams' message on day 1? Crime. What was it on the final day of the election? Crime. As we came out of the recovery, crime was the issue, and the mayor delivered the message from start to finish. Same reason that Joe Biden won when he ran for president.
What's the message this year?
Right now, I think it's going to be fiscal responsibility and safety. 2 things that Governor Cuomo is able to lead on at this point. Fiscally,
can Eric Adams lead on that as well?
He can. I just don't know that he's going to have the money to do it, and he's going to be caught up if he either gets a pardon before the court case or he's tied up in the court case during the election, and that's going to be his coverage.
I think, but Marsha, you will know whether Mayor Adams is going to run before the primary. I mean, I don't think that he's going to continue this and run a race against all of these folks. I think that something tells me that we're going to hear soon of what Mayor Adams' plans are going to be. And if Mayor Adams continues to run for re-election, it really makes Governor Cuomo's job a lot more difficult because they share a lot of the same voters. We're talking about Black and Latinos, unions, homeowners, outer boroughs. It makes it very difficult.
I think it helps.
There's recently a poll, which I read, that basically said that if Adams was in the race and Cuomo was in the race, Cuomo, believe me, had like 31 points starting. Eric Adams was 8. And when they went through ranked choice voting, Eric Adams didn't even turn out in the top 5.
And that's why Eric Adams on the ballot with Andrew Cuomo helps Cuomo, because Cuomo will be the second choice for any Adams voter. And if we look at what happens ranked choice voting across the country, 90+%, 99% of the time, whoever is in first place on the first ballot still wins. It filters to the top. It's very rare that it changes. Even the mayor's race last time, you had Garcia coming up but not getting to the top.
I think
it changes on the bottom.
You know why it's different, though, Obi? And hear me out. I think it's different this time because of the different ranges of Democrats you have running. You have those that are very progressive on the far left. You have those that are centrist, like Mayor Adams and Governor Cuomo. But then you have folks that are moving steadily towards the middle. And what you're going to see this time around is that the progressives are going to realize they don't have a shot, and they're going to unite behind one candidate. And that's going to really make the ranked choice a lot different. You're going to be able to see the 4th, 3rd, and maybe even 5th get together on the progressive side and put them on the 1st or 2nd ballot this time around.
Just because they say
just think about that. And if you happen to be Senator Ramos or the other Senator Myrie, you can see those voters going to any one of the other candidates.
They will have such a tough time to cut through the message like they did last time.
For example.
The other thing to not forget about this, Cuomo's name ID is through the roof. The other thing, I was on a call with Melissa DeRosa at one point about a month ago when she talked at the poll, public thing that she was talking about.
Melissa DeRosa was his secretary.
Chief of staff for all intents and purposes, secretary to the governor. She was talking about the messaging also being who is going to help New York lead its fight in Albany and know where everything is going and get the power back to New York City it hasn't had for years.
That message is great.
Were he to win and he becomes the mayor and Governor Hochul is still the governor, what kind of a relationship would the two of them have since, there was no love lost between them when she was his lieutenant governor?
Melissa's answered that question. She said it's going to be fine. She said not to worry about it.
Fine or fun?
Fine. And she also pointed out that the de Blasio-Cuomo fights were a lot of semantics and a lot of acting going on there. There was a lot of stuff back and forth. They were playing the roles they had to play and we wanted to play. This governor, remember, this governor also brought Hochul into lieutenant governor, picked her, worked with her, and
wanted to get rid of her.
But didn't.
This is going to be an interesting race.
So it's talking about Governor Hochul, who was on our show last week.
Yeah, it was a great show.
She proposed a huge increase in the budget. And the question I have is this. Given the fact that it's not clear how much federal aid New York will actually get out of Washington with this president, was it responsible of her to propose such a big budget without making allowances for the possibility that there could be drops in aid to like education and Medicare and Medicaid and things like that?
I think she has to think big, and it's important for her to propose a budget for New York so that New Yorkers can say, at least she tried. At least she was ambitious.
All of a sudden, the state
who do you blame?
The state budget has to be done by April 1st.
Okay.
The federal budget is done by October. So what if they pass this big spending budget, they spend tons of money, and then all of a sudden, the aid gets cut back from Washington?
But what does she do? Blames the other, but she tried. And that's what New Yorkers want to see. New Yorkers want to see a fighter.
What does she do? She's got to tighten her belt.
At that point, they'll deal with it. I think your issue there, though, is the question, what can Chuck Schumer deliver as the minority leader? Today, on Friday, actually, they're meeting talking about the message. The Democrats right now in Washington have no power and no messaging. Nothing is coming at this White House yet. And you can't just say, orange man bad, we good. They lost that race before. They have to come up with a message how they're going to fight. And right now, you've got Chuck Schumer, who will not be the majority leader for a number of years.
But it's just a week in the White House. Man, you act like the Democrats are dead on arrival. It's just been a week. Give them an opportunity to regain. They're letting this president make his announcements and all his thousands of executive orders and pardoning terrorists and doing what he does best. But give him an opportunity to regroup and come up with a message. We're going to hear messages.
They don't have a chairman today, and the chairman does not become the spokesman and policy. The Senate right now has been silent right now. They do not know what to lead against Trump. Right now, the Senate will be still held by the Republicans. They'll pick up seats in 2 years under a midterm.
I don't know about that.
I don't know that. The Senate map will hold. The House is in flux. You could have Jeffries as Speaker,
right,
and you will have Senator Schumer as Minority Leader for the next 4 years. Still.
But you mentioned about the leadership. I think what we're seeing, and I'm an independent centrist, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at Minority Leader Jeffries as coming out as almost like Habemus Papam, right, as the leader of the Democrats nationally. He's taking a more active role, and I think that when you hear him, he's talking like a moderate. He's from New York. He's talking substantive issues, and he's looking at what's going to happen in 2 years where he can be Speaker of the House. So he's focused, and the idea that they're leaderless, I don't think that's the case.
And to that point, I think he should become much more the forefront of the party. And the problem New York has is, and the country has with the Democrats right now, is you have two leaders from both houses, from Brooklyn, which is fantastic for us in New York. What does that do across the country when that's the messaging? They actually need to start figuring out what they're going to do on the Senate side, that they're going to be in the minority for 4 years, and put Jeffries out in front, have Minority Leader Jeffries become the spokesman for the party nationwide.
Did Governor Hochul's new budget and her new plans for doing things like, $6 billion worth of rebate checks help her in her re-election campaign next year?
I think it does. If I may, I think it does, considering how congestion pricing hurts her. She needs something to offset congestion pricing.
Yeah, but the check of $300 or $500. But
what she'll say is,
I know it has her name on it, but does it make that big a difference?
She'll say, but hold that. Give me, Obi, can I get a second? Thanks. So they'll be able to say, hey, listen, I know that congestion pricing hit you hard, but look, I try to offset some of the pressures that you were facing as you drove into New York City. Remember that congestion pricing is going to hurt her with the swing purple district voters outside of New York City. So this rebate is supposed to help her, and I think she needs all the help she can get to offset the congestion.
It doesn't even cover a month of tolls from Staten Island, number one, before congestion pricing. That's even going up. Number two, what we have right now in New York State, overspending is outrageous. The state of New York still owes about $6 billion to the federal government for the unemployment money that they borrowed. Every other state that paid it back with money that came in and surpluses and COVID money that came in. New York spent it instead of paid it back. So every business in New York pays more for their unemployment insurance and workers' comp than they would have paid otherwise. The unemployment insurance right now is outrageous for the state, and the governor could have lowered that. And she chose not to do that, and that would have helped the economy more.
So let me ask you another question. So we live in a state that's a blue state, sort of a blue state.
Oh, it's blue.
So Democrats feel that Kathy Hochul's in a good position for re-election if she faces a strong Republican opponent like, say, Mike Lawler, because it's a Democratic state. Is that pie in the sky?
Pie in the sky. I think Mike Lawler would make a formidable candidate against the governor. The reality is that, yes, it is a blue state. But hold up. When you go outside of New York City and Westchester, it is red.
Oh, of course.
Red. But hold up. Yeah. Hold up. If you go outside of New York City, it's red. And what we're seeing in New York City is that there's more pockets of New York City.
Can the Republican
with Rush.
win?
Yes. And I think that I'll tell you how. Right now, you're looking at former Congressman Zeldin did very well statewide, getting about 47% of the vote. He did well in New York City.
Secretary. Secretary Zeldin about to be.
EPA administrator.
Can a Democrat?
Wait, hold up. He can win, and I'm telling you how.
Republican win.
A Republican can win because you're now seeing, since President Trump's election in November, you have a lot more Latinos voting Republican. You have a lot more Russians coming into the city voting Republican. You have a lot more members of the city council that are Republican. So you have an opportunity for Mike Lawler to be able to connect.
One,
be very careful.
A Republican can beat Hochul. Two, Hochul's going to have a primary from Torres. Her own lieutenant governor is going to run against her. She has a tough enough time coming out of that. And Lawler, if he's the nominee, will not beat Torres or Delgado. Period. End of story.
Does she win a Democratic primary?
I doubt it.
Seriously?
I doubt it.
You heard that. I didn't say that. He said that. Look, she's still the incumbent governor with enormous power. What are you talking about?
And a big war chest.
And a big war chest. Are you crazy? No, hold up. She's gonna be. Look, if Torres runs, I'm sure it's gonna be a great primary for us to watch, and we'll see what happens. But you guys don't turn your back on Mike Lawler. Mike Lawler is a moderate Republican. He runs like a centrist, and he gets a lot of support from people that you would not otherwise expect.
You think Lawler could beat Torres statewide?
What?
Lawler could beat Torres statewide or Delgado?
Do you think that?
No, I don't. He cannot. He absolutely cannot.
Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I think that
Because
Torres is my congressman. I think he's a great guy.
The reason,
hey, Congressman Torres, I like you a great deal. I'm not going to say that.
50% of Democratic voters in the primary come out of New York City area. Ask Letitia James how she won an AG race, number one. Number two, if Lawler runs against Torres, he cannot run against Hochul's record, and that's the problem. You can't run against Hochul.
These are all topics we're going to have to do on another show, and I'm sure you'll be back, and we'll deal with that at that time. So thank you both for joining me.
Thank you so much.
And thank you at home as well.